Lush, Executive Editor of Hub Culture, and I'm here in Davos 2026 with Peter Thal Larsen. How are you?
Very well. It's almost over, so that's a good thing.
So you've been here for at least 10 Davoses, lost count.
I've lost count, but it's more than 10.
Yeah. Okay, so and you're the global editor of Reuters Breakingviews. So what has been the most stark for you? What has been the overwhelming theme for you this Davos?
Well, it's impossible to talk about this Davos without the whole Greenland sort of Trump thing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the joke about Davos always is that everybody comes here and the world's media arrive and nothing actually really happens here. There's a lot of talk, but not much else. But this year, things actually happened here. You know, Trump threatened Greenland. He arrived. He got in a room with Mark Rutte from NATO. There were other heads of state here, and then he emerged. Trump emerged on Wednesday evening, saying, "Oh, we've sort of done a deal on Greenland, and you know, crisis over."
But we don't actually know what that deal is.
We don't.
And we don't know if it's going to last.
No.
Right. But it seems like there's some kind of step down, and maybe the concerns about tariffs for the moment have been averted.
Yeah. So he threatened tariffs. He said in his speech on Wednesday that he wasn't going to use force. Then on Wednesday evening he said, "Oh, we're not doing the tariffs either because now we have the outlines of a deal." And so that's kind of gone away. And we'll have to see what exactly they've agreed about Greenland. What hasn't gone away is that it's just been it's been a very harsh reminder for every other member of NATO that Trump is going to be transactional about the US membership of the alliance. And that means, I mean, it's probably already questionable where if Russia invades Poland, does the US come to the rescue? Right. Now I think people are no longer going to assume anything from the US on that.
So I was interested to see Belgium's Prime Minister's comment saying that many red lines have been crossed now by Trump. He said, being a happy vassal is one thing. Being a miserable slave is quite another. And if you back down now, talking about the Europe, you're going to lose your dignity. And the most important thing you have in a democracy is your dignity. Now, I'd argue the most important thing you have pretty much anywhere is your dignity.
Right.
But it does feel like there's a growing annoyance. He said, you know, we've given in a lot. We've really given in a lot to Trump, but it's getting too far. Do you get a sense from the European CEOs, leaders, business leaders, and political leaders that you speak to that there is some rising frustration that will end up in something?
Yeah, more than frustration. I mean, it's, you know, but I think you have to separate the sort of the emotion from what are they actually going to do about it. There's a very strong emotional reaction, like we can't rely on the US. This reminds us we need to put our own house in order. We need to circle the wagons. You know, this is a crisis. Europe needs to come together. People will say all those things and they believe it, but they then have to translate it into action, into action on defense, into action on, you know, regulation, growth, all kinds of other things. And that's tricky. And, you know, the Belgian Prime Minister, for all his fine words, was the person who basically blocked Europe from creating a big loan for Ukraine using the frozen Russian assets.
Right.
So which is something everybody else wanted to do. So you can still see that for all the determination to do things differently, when it comes down to it, there are still all these difficult compromises to be struck.
So we heard from the CEO of Anthropic, who always can be a little bit controversial and spiky. He said AI could deliver 50% GDP growth while simultaneously spiking unemployment. And he said he could create this world country of 7 to 10 million people, mostly in Silicon Valley, but with about 3 million people scattered throughout the world. This place where we see wealth and economic growth amongst a very small numbers, completely decoupled from the rest of the population. How did that land with people you spoke to, or have you spoken with CEOs, with folks who recognize this and are doing something about it?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is, Dario Amodei, I'm sure he's an amazing technologist, and so, you know, I'm sure that he tells you about what AI can do. I'm sure you should, you know, we should pay attention. I question his economic, his credentials as an economist, because 50% growth is sort of, I mean, it's just like, it's never been done in the history of human, you know, of civilization.
I think he might mean for those people or those companies who are using it.
Okay, maybe. I mean, but the polarization, the sort of extremes of wealth, I think, is definitely a theme. And But I would also say, and when you talk to executives, they talk about this, and they talk about how one thing that is definitely happening is people are not growing their workforces as much, and they're sort of trying to get productivity improvements. I would also say that I think for all the talk about AI at Davos this year again, I didn't hear as much new stuff as I heard last year.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of a sense of like, we've got all these large language models, we're talking, people are trying it, but particularly when you talk to companies, you say, what are you using, what are you implementing, are you really getting any benefits? Beyond the sort of obvious stuff, like call centers and coding, it's still quite limited.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of an element with the AI guys, like they needed something new to say.
Right.
So
I did hear some interesting things. I heard the CEO of Dow speaking, Dow Chemicals, talking about how artificial intelligence was being used in one of their biggest facilities, which is the size of the Isle of Manhattan.
Right.
And it's being used to predict which machines might need maintenance ahead of schedule. And apparently it saved them $5 million, which not. I heard from OpenAI, this was, I thought was fascinating actually, that obviously that the most users are in places like India and the US. The most places that are, the most places where it's penetrated the most includes Singapore, and the Netherlands. The places where people are using the most AI agents, Vietnam, Morocco, and Pakistan.
Okay.
And that was interesting to me, but for me that means, because it's quite high price, right? $20 for that kind of license. And you see in those places, software developers concentrated, you see a lot of folks on doing gig economy, so they're clearly using it as super users.
Yeah.
So that for me was quite interesting, and a little bit of hope, I don't know.
Hope, yeah, possibly. But it's definitely that, I think that's also a real sign that the adoption is on the sort of consumer level, right? It's people using ChatGPT for whatever. I mean, I went around to Meta and they were telling me that, because they've now put that AI button on WhatsApp and on Instagram and everything, they say a billion people are using AI on those platforms. So on the consumer level, it's being adopted. At the company level, it's still quite limited, I think.
Interesting. So you've written about the climate change, or the lack of climate change discussion here, and you said that I think the sessions have collapsed from 16 in 2022 to just 4 in this year. Has it gone and has it disappeared entirely, or is it masked by different words?
No, I think, well, so I think as I understand it, one of the conditions for the very large US delegation and, and Trump was that the woke stuff, in inverted commas, gets sort of pushed a bit to the side on the agenda. So I think that's one of the things that happened. What I've noticed is that the people who've historically talked about climate change and sustainability have now sort of snuck back into the program talking about resilience.
Right.
So that's the code word for talking about
the secret jargon
about the environment. But even then, that's a shift, right? Because whereas with climate change, it was the discussion was about, these are the things we need to do to stop that from happening. And resilience is all about, well, it's happening, so how do we adapt to it?
Right.
So that, I think, unfortunately, is already, that shift has already taken place.
I mean, it was interesting to me that a few people, both from the finance side as well as the academic side, talked about the International Maritime Treaty that passed in London, I think, just the week before Davos, and saying it had taken 10 years to get there. And actually, it was really significant in terms of policing the high seas, basically, and what people can do in the high seas. And that is a climate question. I didn't hear a huge amount of it coming out of the Congress Center, but it seems like, at least in some of the conversations that happen outside on the promenade,
and absolutely, and notwithstanding what Trump said about how the Chinese don't have any windmills, I mean, it's complete nonsense. I mean, China has a lot of wind power, a lot of solar power, and is obviously developing those technologies and exporting around the world. So yes, I think that's one of the striking sort of admissions from this year.
Any other major theme that you want to highlight from the week?
So the one interesting thing, I think, I mean, there's a number of interesting things, but one thing that really struck me is, and it's happened a couple of times before, is how quickly completely bogus information can spread around this gathering of high-powered, well-informed, educated people. So I don't know whether you picked this up.
Is this the mobile signal?
Yeah, so there's a story like everybody was like, oh, you know, they're gonna turn off the mobile phone signals when Trump is speaking,
right?
Or they're gonna scramble them.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, where did you hear that? And it's like, oh, I heard it from someone at the
Right.
forum.
Right.
Oh no, I heard it from the transport company. You know, and they were forwarding WhatsApps around and stuff. Absolute nonsense.
Total
I walked
nonsense.
down the promenade because Trump spoke for so long that I
Yeah.
had to like leave the Congress Center and go to something else.
Right.
And I walked down the promenade, listening to him speak. With video, 5G, perfect 5G video on my phone for the whole time. So it was completely bogus.
Yeah.
But you have this combination of people who are very confident and also want to let you know that they know something that you don't. And so this is how this stuff spreads.
Yeah. I mean, I got it from a couple people. Didn't really think about it, and then I thought, really? So I asked, I'm afraid to say AI, and it came back immediately and said, the Swiss laws will prevent this from happening unless it's a public emergency, and in this case, it does not appear like a public emergency, so this is fake news.
Oh, well, that's one occasion where AI got it right and everyone else got it wrong.
Any other big theme to highlight?
I mean, I think, I still think, even on the financial front, people, investors diversifying away from the US, investors thinking about allocating capital differently, being less dependent on the US. I think that's...
And businesses moving out of the US, do you think?
That's still, no, you're still not seeing that.
Okay.
You still meet these European CEOs who are like, no, I'm investing in the US.
Okay.
But I think on the financial side, there's definitely a bit of nervousness about just the amount of capital that's gone into the US, what's happening with the Federal Reserve. I think, nobody's really going to talk about it too much publicly, but there is a sort of like, oh, we need to hedge our bets a bit.
Interesting. Okay. Any personal reflection? What happened? What were you surprised about this year at Davos?
Well, just that there was some news, actually. Normally you come to Davos and then something happens somewhere else, like the Arab Spring or something like that. And this time it was like, oh, it's actually happening
I'm actually here and it's happening.
Yeah.
Great. Peter, thank you very much for stopping by
Thank you.
Hub Culture Studio, and I'm Edie Lush.